Hi, I'm Theresa and welcome to my channel. Today I am filming a vlog, which is very exciting. I am going to be reading Royals by Rachel Hawkins. So, there's a story behind this, okay? So, before I started my YouTube channel, I mentioned this book to one of my friends. Said, you know, I've read some reviews about the Scottish rep in it and it sounds very bad, and I think it would be absolutely hilarious to see someone do a video on it. And so I was gifted this book by my friend and said, you should do the video. And so I've been holding on to it for all this time, but finally I'm going to film it. So this is a very short book. It is a YA romance, and it follows a girl who gets entangled in the Scottish royal family. And you may be thinking, Scottish royal family, what you on about? They exist in this book for some reason. So I'm just going to be reading this and giving you my thoughts on how Scotland is presented in the book. And of course, because this is me, I do have an ulterior motive in reading it, and it is sapphic. So this book is straight, but the kind of spin-off sequel to it is not. This is Her Royal Highness by Rachel Hawkins. It is sapphic, it's boarding school, it's enemies to lovers. I really want to read it, but I've been put off because of the Scottish rep in it. So I figured if I read this book first and get all my jokes out and get used to it, then I can enjoy the other one more. That's just my logic. So I decided I would film this vlog reading the two of them to subject you to my pain about the Scottish representation and have a bit of a laugh, really. So this is going to be filmed kind of in two parts. I'm going to read Royals now, then I'm going to continue the vlog from Spain, because I'm moving to Spain in 9 days, which is scary. But I'm not going to have time to read the sequel here as well, so I thought I would read it from there and get the ebook. So no time at all will pass for you, but I will be in a new country. So yes, welcome to the start of vlog. Let's get started. Hello, it's a bit later on and I'm sitting down to finally start Royals. I'm actually on sprints tonight, so I'm hoping to get a good amount of reading done. And yeah, I'll check back in once I've read a bit more, give a proper synopsis and let you know what I think. Okay, so we've met the prince, right? He's ginger. Of course he's ginger. It's just, of course he's ginger. Now, I know this book isn't saying that all Scots are ginger. It's cracking me up, guys. So yeah, that's my update. I'll be back with a synopsis later. Okay, so this book talks a lot about, like, the accents. So basically this follows an American girl and her older sister who falls in love with the prince, and at the beginning of the book they get engaged. And they're talking about her sisters and the prince's accents, and they're like, English. And they're like, he has an English accent. I'm like, why does he have an English accent? He's Scottish. What's wrong with the Scottish accent? Why can't he be Scottish? Well, he is Scottish, but why can't he have a Scottish accent? Anyway, I thought I'd give you the synopsis. So as I said, this follows an American teenage girl, and her sister moved to the UK for university, and there she met the Prince of Scotland, fell in love, and now at the beginning of the book they're announcing their engagement. And so this has kind of caused some mess in our main character's life. What's her name? Daisy. She talks so much about her sister, I didn't even know her own name. Anyway, this causes a lot of problems in Daisy's life with, like, paparazzi and such, and it's just a bit of a confusing mess. But she heads over to Scotland for the wedding, and there she meets someone, and then there's some romance. I'm obviously not quite that far in yet, so I'll keep you updated on that, but that's where we're at just now. And I don't know, it's like stereotypical slightly, but then also being like, but he doesn't have an accent, and it's just, I don't know, maybe this is just me. So I've just finished my first 45-minute sprint and read 54 pages, so making progress. It's quite a short book, so I'm quite a good chunk of the way through, and a press incident has just happened with our main character Daisy, so she's been roped into going to Scotland for the summer. She's now impressed, and yeah, and I think what's kind of striking me most right now so far is just how very American the view of Scotland is. And like, obviously that's the point because it's written by an American author, about American characters, yeah. But like, I still can't believe that this is how people really think of us. And I just, it's very othering almost. I don't know. It's weird. So yeah, I'm gonna continue, let you know what I think. Okay, so this isn't a Scottish thing, but our main character is just taking a picture of someone and she wants to send it to her best friend And she's like, I'm gonna email it to her. I'm like, what fucking decade are you in, pal? This is published in 2018. Do you not have like WhatsApp or Snapchat or Instagram or some other not email messenger? I don't know, it just cracked me up. So this book has like a big focus on describing accents, and literally in the same page, one is described as, his words are mostly a series of rolls and grunts and a kind of spitting sound, which, okay. And then his own Scottish accent, musical but comprehensible. I mean, valid, to be honest. Yeah. Scottish accents aren't always easy to understand. And I think this guy, the first guy that they're describing, is kind of pissed. So yeah, Scottish people who are pissed off do just kind of lose all sense to anyone who's not Scottish, I suppose. And they just like arrived at this house and there's 20 bagpipers outside, and then two of these guys who are like pals with one of the princes comes out and they're wearing kilts and everything as well, and I'm like, okay. It's not even like it's a big party or anything at the house, it's just like a house with just the royal family in it. Not even the whole royal family, just a couple of the princes and their friends. And they've got bloody pipers outside. And they're even playing traditional Scottish songs, it's like pop songs. But anyway, I'm actually kind of having fun with this, I have to say, even if I do sometimes have to roll my eyes. Okay, so I'm at like the same bit, and she's now writing the Scottish guy speaking in the way he's speaking, and I have to say it's actually not bad. I have to say I'm quite impressed with it. But then her main character goes, it's like we're an Outlander, and it just loses all credibility. Ay. And there's been a Braveheart mention. Of course. Okay, so I've read quite a bit further. I'm 130 pages in, and something that's kind of annoying me is when our main character is narrating, she'll be like, I take the elevator, sorry, the lift, or the trunk of the car, sorry, the boot. And it's like, fuck off. You can still speak American in Scotland. You'll just be made fun of for it. But I don't know, it's just bothering me a bit. Anyway, there's been mention of the unicorn being Scotland's national animal. I approve. Still no kind of explanation on why Scotland has a royal family, which is something I want to know. Like, what history changed? Why have we got a royal family? It's got a lot of the kind of typical normal girl gets in with the royal family and makes lots of errors and offends people, and she doesn't fit all their conservative views, blah blah blah. So it's got like a lot of that, which is, I don't know. I suppose it's fun. It is fun to read. I am enjoying it. I'm reading it quickly, but it's definitely just not something I would normally pick up if it wasn't for this vlog, and wasn't so that I could then read the spin-off for my sapphics. We've still not met Princess Flora, who I believe is a love interest in that, so I'm like intrigued to meet her character as well. But yeah, in the meantime, I'm enjoying it. Hello again. So I just read something a bit weird, right? So they're walking through Edinburgh, and she says, the streets are crowded, bagpipes competing with each other, and more guys dressed as Braveheart than should be allowed. Now, I have been to Edinburgh several times. I have never seen people dressed as fucking Braveheart. There's bagpipes, sometimes, aye. Especially, like, touristy season and touristy places, but, like, does that really happen? Hello, I'm now 200 pages in. So I'm actually reading this very quickly. I've read this all in one sitting. Sprints are so helpful for me actually reading. Love it. Anyway, someone just said, okay, so our main character says, do you wear kilts? Wouldn't be allowed in the Highlands if we didn't. I live in the Highlands, I think. I'm like at the kind of border between Highlands and Lowlands. Wouldn't I wear kilts all the time? Come on, man. We're normal people. I know it's probably meant to be a joke, but like, I do sometimes worry that Americans actually think that. So, just to clarify, We didn't actually wear kilts all the time. This isn't the Outlander. But yeah, I am actually quite enjoying it, considering I didn't really think I would. It's fun, it's easy to read. Okay, so this book has like little like news articles interspersed. And there's one here about Princess Flora. We finally met her, she's a bitch. Love it. Anyway, this one says she goes to a posh boarding school on the Isle of Skye. But we're not giving the name on request of the palace. And it's like, Isle of Skye's nae big, Gwyn. Like, you've definitely just given that location. It's not a big place. I just googled it. It's got 13,000 people. That's not a lot of people. There's not going to be that many elite all-girl boarding schools there, okay? Like, what? There's been Scottish dancing. They did Arcadian Strip the Willow, which is my favourite dance. It's so fun. I do love Scottish dancing. I didn't love being forced to date in PE every year at Christmas time, but now that I'm older I can appreciate it. But also Flora's appeared. She's very sapphic. I love her. But she's also a bitch. Like, we barely talk to her at all, but you know what? Bitchy and sapphic, I like it. It's my style. Okay, so someone's just said that the reason that he does what he's told basically by the royal family is because they are helping his family out financially, and there's a lot of things that make sense, but one of them is that they're paying his tuition to go to St. Andrews, and in Scotland we have free tuition. Could the author not have googled that? They could have worded it differently, so it's paying for his accommodation there because it's fucking extortionate, but the fact that it's tuition when the Scottish government pays our tuition? Interesting. Not very well researched. Hello, this is now 1:45 in the morning, but I have finished Royals. I really wasn't planning on reading it all in one sitting, but then I was on sprints until midnight, and when I finished I had 7 pages left, so I had to finish it, okay? So I have to say I very much did actually enjoy my time reading this. It's fun. It's not exactly funny, but like there's some humour to it. It got a couple of smiles out of me, but it was fast paced, it was fun, it was lighthearted, it was just everything it was meant to be. I'm going to do a proper clip tomorrow to kind of give you my thoughts on the Scottishness of it, once I've, you know, thought a bit and I'm a bit more coherent, but really it wasn't as bad as a lot of the reviews that I'd read made it out to be. There were a few inconsistencies, a lot of very touristic perceptions of Scotland, American perceptions of Scotland, but like, it wasn't horrific. But yeah, I will give you more on that tomorrow, but for now, I've finished it. It's only 293 pages, it's not a lot. And I think I'm going to give it 3 stars. But yeah, it's good fun. I'm excited to read the next book. Hello, it's the next day, and I just wanted to wrap up my thoughts on Royals by Rachel Hawkins. So, my kind of main conclusion I've drawn about this book is that this book is written for an American audience. And there's just no doubt about it. The way that Scotland is treated, its people, its culture, everything is so, like, exoticized. And it's very strange to read that from a Scottish perspective, because it's just like, yeah, and just like the way accents are talked about as well. It's just like so othering. It's strange. This definitely touches on all the like tourist trap parts of Scotland, you know, the Healing Coos, Loch Ness, Nessie, the Royal Mile at Edinburgh, like all the really touristy sites. And it makes sense because apparently the only research that this author did for writing this book was a trip to Edinburgh and a walk through the Highlands, and it just very much shows she doesn't know much about Scotland, modern day, not a tourist trap, just what the rest of us live like. There's another thing that I kind of picked up on last night that I didn't talk about because I wasn't sure, but basically, you know when I mentioned that someone gets their tuition fees paid by their Scottish royal family, and I picked up on, well, you wouldn't really get that because we don't pay tuition fees. At the same time, they also said that medical bills were paid at that time because the patient needed specialists, and it's just like, the NHS exists. Like, I didn't say anything because we do have private healthcare, it does exist, and the aristocracy would probably use it. But I think just including medical bills and having it be that she needs specialists so she had to go private, it's kind of like a knock on the NHS, and it's very much like, because it's free, it's subpar, and like that's just not the case at all, and it kind of pissed me off. So yeah, that also just kind of bothered me, and it's like coming from a very American perspective as well, of having to pay for things. So yeah, there's a few other things where it's just quite American overall, the book, even the Scottish parts, and like some of the slang's not used quite right, or it's just weird. Like, I don't know how to explain it. So all in all, definitely written by an American for Americans, but not horrific. Could have been worse. I did expect worse, I have to say. The actual book itself, if I try and ignore the Scottish part, the romance was just not convincing. They needed so much more development. Like, sorry, my arm is tired, so I'm trying to find a way I can hold this. Yeah, it was just needed more development. The characters needed more development. They weren't very real, or didn't have much depth to them. And like, it is a short book, but I have seen wonderful things being done with short books with characterization and romance, so like it's not an excuse. But I don't know. It just needed more. But it was fun, it was easy to read, lighthearted, you know, it was kind of what it set out to be. But yeah, that's my kind of wrap up of my thoughts on royals. And yeah, so I will see you very soon for you, but in a while for me, with part 2 of this vlog with Her Royal Highness. Hello again and welcome to the second part of this vlog. So no time has passed for you, but it is now April. I filmed that first half in January. I didn't mean to take such a big break from it, but things came up with my visa, travelling to Spain, my job, I got COVID, all of that stuff. But now, finally, I'm here to read Her Royal Highness. So, Her Royal Highness, I think I've kind of mentioned already, is the spin-off to Royals. It is sapphic, and it follows Flora, the prince's younger sister. She is a bit of a troublemaker, I believe. She's a bit of a bitch. Love that for her. I'm very excited to see how her story goes. It's told again from the perspective of an American girl, but she's attending this boarding school in Scotland with Princess Flora. And I'll give a proper synopsis once I've started it and I can comment on it, but yeah, I'm excited to finally be reading this. I have heard good things about this one. It's quite well loved, so I want to see if I can love it, especially now that I've read Royals and kind of gotten all my little this is bad Scottish rep, this is bad Scottish rep kind of arguments out of me, and I can focus on the story for itself and the characters for themselves. So yeah, let's go. I'm excited. Okay, so literally the first page, the first line, the letter our main character gets from the school accepting her. They have unicorns on the stationery, so there's like a whole conversation about that, and like they're making fun of it, or you know, saying it's a cute quirky Scottish thing. And the thing is, I can actually see us doing that. Like a fancy school doing that as their symbol. So like it's a stereotype, but I can see it happening. Hello, I've had to tie my hair up because it's quite windy, but it's so lovely and warm out here. Anyway, our main character, Millie, is obsessed with like 2 Scottish shows or films or whatever. One of them is Brave by Disney, which, valid, I love Brave, it's such a fun film. And the other one is a kind of made up one, which is very obviously just Outlander. And like, is that not the American perspective of Scotland? Actually, not even just American, just a lot of the outside world. Like, my roommate's obsessed with Outlander, and she's like, have you watched it? I'm like, no. I've watched the first episode now. Not intrigued. But, yeah, it's just, it's so, I don't know, just so exactly what I expect when I hear about an American who is obsessed with Scotland, is those 2. And there's other things. She's interested in geology, and she's interested in the geology in Scotland, and that's interesting. But like, I don't know. And you know how I mentioned earlier in the vlog how they're saying the trunk of the car, no, the boot. Well, they're doing that now with there's lots of lakes in Scotland. Oh no, lochs. And it's just like, you can say lake. You can say lake. It's probably better that you say lake because you won't be able to pronounce loch. I can barely pronounce loch. I hate doing that sound in your throat. Anyway, that was a bit of a rant. But you know what? I'm a few chapters in. I'm intrigued. Okay, so now that I've read the first few chapters, I thought I'd give a bit of a explanation of what's happening in the book. So this follows Millie, who is a high school student in Texas in the States, and she has been dreaming of going to this fancy boarding school in Scotland for a while, but the summer before she's meant to go, and when she gets her acceptance, she and her best friend, who she's had a crush on for ages, begin dating, and she doesn't want to go because she doesn't want to miss this. But her friend's ex-boyfriend appears in town again, and the two get back together, which leaves Millie heartbroken, and so she decides what better thing to do than to run away to Scotland. She is definitely obsessed with Scotland, and from what I can tell, much of it is coming from this Outlander spin-off show. Like, the way she talks about it, it's like, I could be there. It's like, no you couldn't, it's not real. And like, this idea that Scotland is still just the Highlands and the Jacobites and men wearing kilts and God knows what, and it's like so outdated and like not real, not representative of the real Scotland. So like, I'm hoping that when she gets there that will change, but considering she's going to like a fancy boarding school in the Highlands, I'm not seeing it happening, to be honest. We'll see. But yeah, that's kind of where I'm at, is her just now deciding that she's going to go to the school. So we'll see what happens next. And when she finally meets Flora, her roommate. An actual quote from this book. Have you ever read up on Scottish history? It's wild. Gonna be me and Braveheart side by side. What is this author's obsession with Braveheart, and does she know that it is wildly inaccurate? Like, I studied the period where Braveheart takes place in history, and my teacher put it on to show us how inaccurate it was, and she stood there and went, nope, wouldn't happen, wrong, this didn't happen. It's so frustrating. So we're at school now, and Millie and Flora, who's the princess, have met. They are not getting along. Millie doesn't actually know that she's a princess yet, and Millie's just met another girl, and she introduces herself. She says, I'm from America, from Texas specifically, and then she's like, oh, but they might not know what Texas is. Of course we know what Texas is! How could we not know the American states? At least like the big ones like Texas. I don't know. Hello, so I'm now 100 pages in, and I have to say, for all my faults I found with these books, they are so very readable. Like, they're so easy, so quick, so fun to read. I'm not reading this one as quickly as I think I read Royals, but I'm definitely going at a decent pace, and I am enjoying it overall. I'm not like overly convinced by any of the characters. I'm waiting for some more development. But it's a bit of fun. We've met some of the characters from the previous book, and I don't really remember them, but they're there. So I suppose that'd be nice if you did remember them. But yeah, it's just a bit of a fun, light-hearted kind of book, and I'm enjoying it. I've still not got very far in the romance, but you know, I suppose if it's enemies to lovers, you need to have a bit of a slow burn, else it just doesn't work, so I'm kind of hoping we get that in a less than 300 page book. Anyway, having fun, gonna keep reading. So I'm now over halfway through. I'm reading it very, very quickly, and at this school they have this thing called the challenge, where they just like dump the kids in the wilderness and leave them to fend for themselves for a couple of days, and they have to go in pairs with their roommates. So obviously Flora and our main character Millie have to go together, and of course they're getting up some mischief. Well, Flora is anyway. She's very determined to not be at the school, and she's kind of like uncaring of who she drags into her problems, and that's kind of where most of our enemies bit's coming from, because Millie gets dragged in. And that's entertaining. I'm enjoying the relationship there, the banter and everything. For a while I wasn't very convinced by the enemies to lovers. Like, they just had a bit of an awkward first meeting, and then Millie decided Flora hated her when there wasn't really anything to go with it, but now I get why Flora would be pissing her off. But the other thing I kind of wanted to comment on is that Millie has moved to school in another country, she's never once mentioned being homesick, or she's talked to her friend maybe once that she's mentioned. She called her dad when she arrived. Nothing more. Not thinking about her family or friends. And as someone who's moved to a new country twice, no. It's just, no. And I don't know, that's just something I'd like to see a bit more, because right now it's like her family and her friends at home just don't exist. And it's just not right. So I'd have liked to see a bit more development there. Bit more feelings. Like, I feel like there's not many feelings going on other than this kind of like mild irritation at Flora. Okay, so Millie and Flora are kind of stuck out in the wilderness and they're discussing their sexuality, because Millie has mentioned that she's bi before, and so Flora then tells her that she's a lesbian, and she says something that I quite like. She says that she tried liking boys but it didn't take because they're just very boyish, and like, I get that. Hello. It's a bit later now and everything's calmed down, so I look a bit more human, not just a sweaty mess with my hair tied up. I don't look good with my hair tied up, but you do what you need to do. Anyway, I have about 50 pages left of this book. I've been reading it so quickly, but Millie has just tried Iron Brew and not liked it. A crime against Scotland. That's the worst part of these books. How can you not like Iron Brew? I don't like fizzy drinks and I like Iron Brew. Tut tut. But yeah, they went to the Isle of Skye, which was cool, and did some of the touristy things, stayed in the castle, you know, royal family stuff. And to be honest, this book, compared to Royals in terms of the Scotland presentation, is so much better, because I think in that one you're very close to the royal family, you're in Edinburgh, you're doing a lot of touristy things, whereas this one you are just at the school, so there's not a huge amount of opportunity for that. But yeah, it's fun. I'm enjoying it. I'm excited to see what happens in the last 50 pages or so. Something else I've noticed is that Millie has a friend at the school called Sakshi, and she is a black girl and she's very tall, and Millie is always calling her an Amazon or a glamazon, and it just doesn't sit right with me. Like, in the same kind of vein, it's quite othering and exoticizing to me. I don't know if I'm just reading into it, but to me it's just a bit weird. Hello, so I have finished Her Royal Highness, and I did overall enjoy it. I think I'm going to give it 3 stars, and I'm considering changing my rating on Royals to 2 stars. I don't know, it didn't blow me away. It wasn't something I think I'll remember or will really stick with me. It was fun, it was lighthearted, but I think it suffered from a lack of character development. The characters just felt so flimsy, they didn't feel real at all. And because of that, the relationship development itself also wasn't great, you know. Like, because the characters didn't feel real, the relationship didn't feel real. And that was a bit of a letdown, as it is a romance novel, but when you're not reading too critically and you can kind of look past that and just see it as like a fun time. But for me, with the way I was reading it, it did suffer for that for me. So the point of this video was to talk about the Scottish representation in these books, and I would definitely say that Royals was the worst of the two. There is so much of this view of Scotland I've seen from some Americans in these books that just sits really weirdly with me. Like this kind of othering of us and seeing us as just like the stereotype, seeing the country as just the Highlands and Edinburgh, when it's so much more. It's this wonderful, diverse, modern country, and it has so many wonderful things to it that these books just don't touch on because they're so caught up in like the tourist traps. So the other kind of thing that bothered me with that was that in neither of these books is it explained why Scotland has a royal family. Like, you have to make some pretty major historical changes for us to have a royal family, and to like not say how that happened, especially in the first book when they're like looking at the portraits in the palace. It could have been so easy to slip in, and this happened and that's how we have a royal family, but to just not explain it just was a bit weird to me. Like like, what part of our history have you erased or changed to make this happen? I don't know, it just didn't completely sit right, both of these books, the way that Scotland was written. And some of it goes for Britain as well, but I think it was mostly Scotland. I think I actually read Joel's review on Goodreads, Fictional Fates, and he said it's like there's almost a fetishization of Scotland, and I can see that it's just completely romanticized and changed to fit this American perspective. And I wasn't a fan of that. And yeah, even a sapphic romance wasn't enough to make that better for me. And like the pacing of Her Royal Highness as well, like it was such like a slow build at the start. It took so long for her to actually go to Scotland, spent so long developing this relationship with her best friend that she eventually breaks up with and causes her to go to Scotland. But then she's never mentioned again until like the last 10 pages. And it's like, what was the point in all of that? Like, it had no or barely any impact on her character. And like I said, I didn't think that there's enough development and chemistry in her and Flora's relationship. And then at the end, the ending's like that. It was so quick and not paced well enough at all, and like it needed more development, and the book basically suffers because it's short. Like it's short and sweet and fun, but the pacing suffers, the character development suffers because of that. And yes, I'm glad I finally read it. Won't be rereading it, I don't think. Yeah, I hope you've enjoyed this video and it's not just been me ranting. Because like I said, I think at the beginning of the video, I have been wanting to make this video for a while, so I'm hoping it turns out as I wanted it to. And I am not making this video to shit on these books or on this author or anything like that. I wanted to read them as a Scot, and I thought I'd bring you along on the journey. And yeah, I will leave links to these books on Goodreads if you want to pick them up. I mean, I'm not discouraging you from it. It's a fun, light-hearted sapphic romance. Like, go for it. And I will also leave my social media, as always, if you want to keep up with me elsewhere. And yes, just thank you very, very much for watching. I hope you've enjoyed, and I'll see you in another video soon.